Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of From the Lighthouse. I'm Stephanie and I'm here today with my friend and co-host Michelle.
Hi Stephanie.
And with our extraordinaire producer Jimmy.
Hi Steph, hi Michelle.
And
Hi, Jimmy.
Hi everyone.
We haven't seen each other for ages.
I know. It's quite a reunion. So we're here today to talk about all things Christmas because it is about to be Christmas. And so we thought it would be a great opportunity for us to talk about our favourite Christmas movies, our favourite Christmas books, our favourite Christmas episodes of television shows, and any other things related to tinsel and Christmas trees and flashing lights and brandy and Christmas cake and so forth. So guys, Christmas films, I think we'll start with. What are some of your favourite Christmas movies?
Oh,
Silence.
I know. There's too many. That's part of the problem.
Well, we have to
Were
say
there ones that you enjoyed though? Because I think there's a
difference, yes,
between the ones that you are forced to see because you have, say, for example, children who want to see.
Go on, name names. Which one are you thinking of?
Oh, actually, I'm thinking about this strange horror Christmas.
Oh, The Nightmare Before Christmas?
No.
With Jack-o'-lantern guy? No?
No, it was where they ended up condemned in a crystal bauble at the end. That was really disturbing.
Oh, dearie me.
What was that one called? Oh,
No,
I've forgotten. But it was remarkable for just how gory, brutal it was. There were limbs being torn off.
That sounds like a Christmas movie you'd enjoy, Jimmy.
No, I'm not a horror fan.
Well, I wasn't either.
You are.
Well, I was. Back when I was younger and, much more violent as opposed to now.
Back in your violent youth.
Back in my violent youth when I was into those sort of things. No, I mean, the only violent Christmas one I can think of... Oh, hang on. No, there is a violent Christmas one I can think of. There's a horror movie. What was it? No. Oh, yes, it's Black Christmas. That's not the one you're thinking of,
No,
is it?
It's not. I'm actually Googling.
Are you Googling?
Well, while Michelle's Googling, what about you? Some standout Christmas favourites or hates?
Favourites or hates? Well, first of all, there's the one that for some reason I watch every single year without fail and have no idea why, and I should really stop watching it because I'm no longer 5. It's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
The old animation.
Yes.
I loved that.
Every year I watch that, and I think,
Where are you watching this?
On television. For some reason, it's always on television.
It's always on television.
And I always somehow manage to catch it, and I just watch it from beginning all the way through the
end. There's
a
Frosty one too that's really cool.
Yes, yeah. I love the Frosty one as well. So I watch a lot of that, and I know, I guess I really like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I love the whole story, so that stayed with me for quite a while. But in the last 5 years or so, I've started this new tradition.
Yeah.
I do an entire day's marathon of the Lord of the Rings movie. But not just the Lord of the Rings movie, the extended edition of the Lord of the Rings movie.
My God.
I'm a true geek. And it starts pretty much after breakfast and finishes around about midnight sometime because it takes that long just to watch all 3 extended edition in one big bulk in that way. But I really like that. I don't know why, but I really do. So that would probably be my favourite thing to do around Christmas time.
I can't believe we've got through 4 minutes of this podcast without mentioning It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes. Well, I'll let you guys go. I'm not too sure about that.
You brought it up.
Look, I really love It's a Wonderful Life. I know it's sentimental. I know it's cheesy. I know it's the obvious answer. But Jimmy Stewart is so endearing. And the whole story is endearing. And it's the kind of heartwarming stuff that you like to watch at Christmas. I probably wouldn't necessarily want to watch it at any other time of year. But it's the kind of thing that you have to watch at Christmas. Although I just read a book in which it was pointed out some of the shortcomings of the story. But I still love It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Christmas tradition for a reason.
I don't think I've watched that since I was 7 years old, and so I have very, I only have very faint memories of it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ring a bell, because every time the bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Oh, Clarence is getting his wings somewhere.
Yeah.
No. I've actually just discovered the movie that I watched with my children, thinking that it was going to be a Christmas movie, and it was definitely a Christmas movie. But who knew that they made horror Christmas movies? because it was called Krampus, and there was a terrifying creature that came after everyone in the village.
Krampus, yeah.
That was a surprise. My children were far too young for that. We did turn off, but I will admit that it was a disturbing but memorable Christmas movie where we were all left somewhat, especially because it had such a dark turn at the end. But, well, not that sort of watching children being eaten alive isn't, sort of fairly disturbing to begin with. But, no, generally speaking, I do think I've watched, but I can't be 100% sure because I do tend to turn off during these experiences. But I do feel as though I've watched some Christmas movies with Will Ferrell in them.
Elf.
Oh, Elf.
Is that what I've watched?
Yeah.
Because I can't
I love
swear
Elf.
to it. Oh, no.
No, that's not.
No.
That's not
I love Elf.
No. I deliberately lobotomized myself in order to get through it. I'm sorry, Stephanie. But
You're all Grinches.
I am a Grinch.
Oh, we didn't mention that. How the Grinch stole Christmas.
I'm not into the Grinch, actually.
No?
Especially not the live action one. That
Not
was
into
weird.
Dr. Seuss?
No,
Not really.
I didn't like Dr. Seuss as a child. I am one of those terrible
Not
children.
Green Eggs and Ham?
No, I really disliked Green. I could not understand
Oh.
why our teacher was inflicting that upon us.
Well, that will explain what that death look you gave me when I ordered green eggs and ham one day for breakfast.
You did actually eat green eggs.
I did. I thought, oh my God, green eggs and ham, I'm going to order that. And then Michelle just looked at it, with repulsion on her face, kind of like,
Look,
what
I
the
was a
hell?
serious child and a joyless adult.
So no Christmas movies do it for you?
Look, well, no, I did like Rudolph.
Rudolph, there you go.
I did.
We have
See?
a commonality.
Rudolph.
How come you're all judging me for Elf, but yet you watch a cartoon made for a 5-year-old?
Rudolph is a
Glowing
classic.
Nose. It's the
Elf is a
glowing
classic.
Nose. No.
Santa, I know him.
Oh.
No,
I just got goosebumps.
I'm having flashbacks that I thought I'd excised.
Yeah,
So, please.
One film that actually surprised me because I wasn't expecting to like it was the Family Stone.
I haven't seen that.
You haven't
no.
seen that? Diane Keaton.
yes.
Is it called Sarah
I've
Jessica
watched
Parker?
Sarah Jessica Parker and Rage McAdams.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that film because I think it went into a different place than I thought it was going to go. It starts off with a straightforward comedy, but then it sort of takes a slightly darker edge. But for me, the best scene in the film was this dinner scene where Sarah Jessica Parker's character is the most hated character on the table. She can't say anything right. Everybody hates her. Nobody likes her. She's the fiancée of one of the sons. And she keeps saying the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she makes a faux pas about one of the gay brothers adopting a son, and she just keeps compounding it with everything she says just keep coming out wrong, and it just sounds more and more insulting, and it's just one of the most awkward dinner scenes, but I loved it.
That's very true to life of most Christmases.
It is. I thought it was absolutely hysterical, but that was, for me, that was a really surprising film. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, but it is one that I every now and then think about, especially when you have those awkward dinners where somebody says something inappropriate and you think
family it's
kind of like no.
I didn't mind that one. I didn't mind that one. I think I have probably I may have watched many, many more Christmas movies than I remember because it is a strategy of mine.
Die Hard?
Oh my God.
Does it count as a Christmas movie?
Yes, it counts as a Christmas movie.
Okay.
No, that's right.
It's a Christmas movie.
Love Actually?
I feel really mixed about Love Actually.
I actually quite like it.
I like aspects of it.
I saw a deleted scene that I absolutely loved, and I wish they had that included. This particular
what's the deleted
scene.
scene? Spoiler warning. Well, I suppose it's not really.
Well, it's
a
not really a spoiler because it got cut. It's actually about the principal of the school that Emma Thompson's son goes to.
Yeah.
And it's just a little short story that didn't really fit in anywhere else except connected to that principal. And when the principal's storyline got cut, there was no point in keeping this story as well. But she goes home, so she's seemingly quite a stern principal, and then she goes home to her partner who is dying of cancer. But her partner has a wonderful, wicked sense of humour. It's a lesbian couple, and may actually be the only gay storyline in there.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, and it got cut. But it's just this quite beautiful, sad, tragic, but funny story at the same time. And it was quite nicely done because it showed this human relationship in about 5 minutes. I think it showed the whole breadth of this relationship.
Oh, that's nice.
And I thought it was really, really beautifully done, but it got axed. Some of the other stories I don't like as much. The whole porno thing was a bit strange, and that guy who went to the US and got laid with a whole bunch of different...
With January Jones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That storyline I hated. I wish they'd gotten rid of that particular
Well, the storyline that actually bothered me is the one, even though I love Hugh Grant, I hated that story because they made so much of that actress... Can't remember her name.
Martina or something.
Yeah. They made so much of her being fat. And she's not at all even overweight. And yet the whole thing is all of these jokes about how fat she is. And that really, I find that really offensive. I also thought there was a bit of weirdness around women in that movie, like the Portuguese maid who is, just like this kind of dream girl for Colin Firth's character. Yeah, it's just some of the stories really rubbed me the wrong way. The one that I like the most actually is Bill Nighy and his manager.
That was an unusual story. I think it went to a place I wasn't expecting with that story as well. But maybe I'm a bit of a sad sack, but I love the Emma Thompson story. That sort of broke my heart. The Emma Thompson,
why would Alan Rickman cheat on Emma Thompson with that?
But
weirdo?
I mean, I love Joni Mitchell as well. So when to culminate with a Joni Mitchell song as a tragic moment, I thought,
and there's that great scene with Mr. Bean doing the gift wrapping, which is just hilarious.
Yeah, my sister and I still quote it now every time we talk about gift wrapping. I was like, what are you going to do now? Dip it in yogurt?
Yeah. There are some moments in that film, I have to say. And I do love the story about the little boy whose mother's... Although he doesn't seem to care that his mother's died. That's what struck me as weird.
Yeah,
but I do love the fact that he's so devoted to this girl. It's quite cute.
Well, the other story I also like is the Laura Linney story. Again, another sad sack
But
story.
that made me so mad. Why couldn't she have love plus be able to care for her brother?
Well, the problem is I shouldn't say this, but I've known people who are actually like that, and so it really broke my heart.
I know, but it just struck me as unfair.
It is unfair, and I think that's what I liked about the film. It didn't show just the positive aspect. It shows so many different facets of love, which is why I think it's aptly titled Love, actually.
Well, and it's a nice thing to kind of I reckon Christmas is all about kind of easy viewing.
It is.
Just throw on something that's nice and familiar and, it's going to make you laugh and all of that. My favourite daggy one actually is, this is really daggy and childish. I love the Polar Express.
Oh, I love the Polar Express.
Oh, good. Someone else likes it.
No,
you didn't yell at me like with Elf.
Well, you deserve to be yelled at.
No, Elf is a classic. Anyway, Polar Express, defend it. Yeah.
Well, for me again, that was surprising because I was trying to figure out what his word was going to be. Because the entire thing, he starts off with the first letter and the last letter of a word, and every character got a different word that's meant to be their word, their thing to aim for Christmas. And his started with B and ended with E, and I thought, what kind of word is he going to get? B? Yeah. And I had no imagination at all because I was sitting there going, B something. I was like, no, it can't be B because there's a huge space in between the B and the E, and I just couldn't figure it out. And so when the reveal of what the word was, I thought, oh, that's really lovely. So
it's really sweet.
It is. It was a really sweet story. Yeah. See, there you go. You're much smarter view than I am. Just in that description alone.
I was just running through the possibilities.
It's a really sweet story.
It is a really sweet story, and I think it's a very clever story too, because it's about a child's inability to believe in Christmas anymore, and until he actually sees a miracle, and the miracle in this case is actually Santa. So I love stories that try to instill that childhood innocence, that power of imagination back into children again, because I had a huge imagination as a child, so I love that aspect, and I think it's quite sad when children kind of lose that imaginative side of them. So I love that movie for that.
And the animation is so beautiful. It's almost too realistic.
Well, Tom Hanks is a little bit eerie in that one because he looks like Tom Hanks.
I know, it's a bit uncanny valley, but it's so beautifully, like when they go to the North Pole and there's all these dips and turns and they go through the landscape of the North Pole. It's so beautifully done. It makes me wish that we had a white Christmas, although I think in reality I would not enjoy a white Christmas.
Well, we know Michelle definitely wouldn't.
Definitely not.
Yeah. She'll be an icicle. She'll be a snowman.
No.
Actually, I forgot to mention probably my favourite. I can't believe my brother would have me murdered. Home Alone.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Oh, yes, I have watched
one or
many
two
times.
or both.
I have absolutely. Both. Yeah, no. I have watched.
Are we all in agreement?
Times. Yeah,
it's great.
I've probably seen it a few too many times, if I'm honest, because...
Well, I saw it at the cinemas, and I remember talking to my neighbour about it. He was younger than I was back then, and I was actually reenacting some of the funny scenes for him because I loved it that much. And I saw it so many times at the cinemas that year because I thought it was such a funny.
Oh, that's so great!
Yeah,
it's a wonderful movie.
It is, and it's one of those. Although, have you watched it recently?
Yeah,
it's very violent.
Oh,
it is very
marvellously
violent.
I have watched it, and Hugh Laurie, isn't it? It's Hugh Laurie, isn't it?
No.
Who's that guy? The guy who's trying to break in.
There's two. There's
Joe Pesci,
Joe Pesci,
and I've forgotten the other guy's name now.
I've forgotten the other guy's name too.
What's his?
It's definitely not.
No,
Hugh
it's
Laurie.
definitely not Hugh. No. What's his name is though?
Donald Trump.
No. Donald Trump. Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Tim Curry's in the
as the concierge in the hotel.
He has a wicked funny scene.
Yeah.
In that one too, and who else is in it? Brenda something. I've forgotten.
And Catherine O'Hara is the mother.
Yes, she was wonderful.
No, I loved those. I thought they're so super violent though. I remember somebody did a video and put it up on YouTube about like how many times those burglars would die. They would be like dead within the first like 5 minutes.
For me, the worst scene was when he had all those stairs lined with tar and one had a nail sticking up.
Oh.
And he stepped on the nail, and I actually cringed when I watched that.
Yeah,
so
they would be dead several times over. Yeah.
Well, one of them gets a blowtorch to his head.
Yeah, and the amount of head trauma that they sustain.
They'd be dead. Yeah.
Yeah, they would be.
Fantastic.
They would fall down the stairs once, and they would be dead.
Yeah.
In the manner that they fall.
Well, there's all the ice scenes. There's that horrible scene where he touches that red hot.
Yeah, door handle.
Yeah, and it gets burnt into his skin.
Although what happens in the two movies blur in my head because I've seen.
Well, the first one is his home. The second one is set at
New York.
the toy store.
But I mean, I can't remember which bit of violence happens.
Most of it actually happens in the first one. The second one is very violent, but not similar type of violence to the first one.
Yeah,
and so you don't get that. Maybe that's where the blurring comes in.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like I remember that scene with the door handle, but I can't remember if that's their door handle or if it's his uncle. You know how he's in his uncle's house for the second one?
No, he's in the toy store.
No, he's not in the toy store. He's in his uncle's house. It's being built. It starts in the toy store and then they move to his uncle's house.
Oh.
Yeah, because remember there's that hole in the floor because the house is still being renovated.
Yes.
And so at one point, Marv falls down the hole, which again would be enough to kill you.
Yes.
But, I mean, how authoritatively am I talking on these? Clearly, I have seen them many times.
I know.
My brother and I used to love watching, and still do, love watching.
So that's a Christmas tradition for you?
Oh, kind of. We don't put it on at any particular point, but I do like watching them on Christmas.
Well, it's not quite a movie. One of my favourite things to watch during Christmas is a particular episode of Vicar of Dibley.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Christmas
is one of my
TV.
favourite shows.
Yes, go on.
One of my favourite shows, Vicar of Dibley. And it's the episode of the Christmas lunch incident.
Ooh.
Have either of you seen the Vicar of Dibley? So she's a female vicar.
I have seen some of
it. Dawn French as Vicar of Dibley. And the town is described as the inbreeding capital of England because they're absolutely insane. All the people there are insane. And Dawn French actually once mentioned that she was a bit hesitant to take on this role because she normally plays the insane character. And in this show, she's the straight person in a town of insanity because they're all absolutely cuckoo. But anyway, so in this particular episode, she somehow manages to get herself invited into 3 different Christmas lunches, and she finds herself unable to reject any of them. Every time she tries, they guilt her into it, unconsciously guilt her. Like before she could even say, "Oh no, I can't make it," they say, "Oh, we're so looking forward to this. We haven't had a guest since my late wife died in 1930, whatever it was." Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, can we push it back by another hour?" So she somehow manages to get herself invited into 3 lunches, one right after the other. So by the time she finishes the last lunch, she's about to explode because she's had 3 turkeys, and each lunch actually builds on the last one in terms of how much food they can actually cram down her. So in one of the lunches, she somehow found herself in a eating competition, a Brussels sprouts eating competition, again through guilt. So it's about what happens when you're trying to be a nice and wonderful person to people and not make them feel bad. And through that process, you end up pretty much, turning yourself into a turkey because she basically gets so stuffed by the end of it, which I can relate to because whenever there's Christmas, I eat myself silly. But not because I get invited to different lunches, but because I just like food so much.
Actually, before we move on to television shows, I've just remembered that we were going to talk about a movie that Jimmy and I remember but may not be widely known, A Mom for Christmas.
Oh,
A Mom for Christmas.
A mom, yes, a mom.
Yeah, so there's this terrible, I think it's like late 80s or early 90s movie with Olivia Newton-John.
80s, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was 80s. And she's a mannequin
Yes.
who comes
Oh.
alive.
Oh, goodness,
Do you remember that?
Yes,
that.
Yeah.
the kids made a wish.
The
They
kids made a
they
wish,
wanted a
yeah.
mom for Christmas.
Yeah, so she's like a department store mannequin, and she comes alive and she like comes to their
Oh,
house.
I remember there's this scene towards the end when the tension is mounting and there's just a whole stash of mannequins.
Yes.
Yes, that's it, isn't it? That's
And
it.
then she's going to turn back into a mannequin, and they have to kind of go and say, "Oh, we love you."
before she
Yeah,
Before
it's,
she- yeah.
it's kind of like Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Set in Christmas, and also part of that 80s craze of reanimating things. There was actually a film called Mannequin, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, with oh god, names are completely escaping me now. But again, very similar premise. A mannequin comes to life and
Yeah.
falls in love. So it's this Pygmalion idea
Yeah.
that's been played around with through this sort of the mannequins looking so beautiful and again it reminds me of
it's
episode
not
of Seinfeld.
problematic
So
at
there's
all, is it really?
Yeah, like I want a mum for Christmas.
Let's
a
get a
mannequin will do.
mannequin.
Yeah,
And
this
not
seems
just-
appropriate.
not just any mannequin.
Dimensions are everything when it
Yeah.
comes to mothering.
It's especially it's really important to be blonde and very attractive.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and a waist that you can put one hand around. That is what every child dreams of.
Now
they
when I think
of
back on it,
mum.
I'm like, wow, that's super disturbing. But at the
Well,
time,
even-
I thought it was really cute.
Well, even the idea of a mannequin is very problematic, isn't it? It's basically a person that you can move around and do whatever you want to, position whichever way you want to.
It's
just there
creepy.
as window dressing,
Yeah,
which has very, very negative connotation to how we should be viewing mothers.
yeah, but it's creepy, isn't it? This idea that
very
this
creepy.
mannequin comes to life and moves into your home. That sounds like a setup for a horror
Well,
story.
Stepford Wives.
Well,
Really,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Well, isn't there a Doctor Who episode that does that? The mannequins are actually aliens or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I remember something, and I thought that was quite creepy.
Oh,
Yeah,
lovely
Doctor Who
though,
might be
yeah.
a nice place to kind of segue into Christmas television because Doctor Who famously has their Christmas special every year, and usually I quite love their Christmas specials.
Oh, yeah.
They're super fun. Yeah.
Look, that's right. That
That is a
here
real
we are on
Christmas
good-
tra-
we-
tradition,
That's,
yeah.
that's a Christmas treat.
Yeah, that is a Christmas treat. The Christmas Invasion, and what's the one? The one I really like. I can't remember the name. It's the one with with Matt Smith, where he there's this real miser, and he invents a kind of backstory for him, and it's got that singer. What's her name? I can't remember. And he goes back into his past and inserts this love for this singer into his life, but she's got only so many days on Earth, and he can only see her once per year, and so he's only got however many days she's got on her, she's in a fridge for some reason, and she can only be animated for one day per year, and he knows that every Christmas when he sees her, that means it'll be closer to her death. It's a really lovely it's a really lovely love story. It sounds really weird when I say it like that,
I know,
but
you
it's
just see
a
Michelle's
beautiful
face there.
it's a beautiful love story. I tell you, it
little
is.
mannequin-ish, actually.
It is a little bit
back in the
mannequin-ish.
fridge. Back in the
fridge. I can't remember what. Oh, yes, because her family was poor. This is like a future world where her family was poor, and I can't remember the mechanisms of it, but she was buying them time and money by giving up her life somehow in this future world.
That sounds.
And Michael Gambon, who plays Dumbledore, was the cranky man at the centre of it. It's a really clever, actually, really well done story.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas Eve.
Yeah, because we actually don't celebrate Christmas. So, but we do, of course, watch television.
Yeah, we celebrate. Yeah, well, that's what most people do when they celebrate Christmas, to be honest.
That's right. So that is. Oh yes, that's something to look forward to this year. Oh, nice.
And there's that Doctor Who one with the creepy snowman.
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
The one with Clara. Clara's in that. Yeah.
Yep. I've seen that one.
Doctor Who Christmas specials are reliably
Excellent,
awesome, I think.
Excellent stuff for Christmas Eve. Because I am so much older than you, I have to tell you that I have memories of, and you may not even know of them, but one of my first memories of Christmas television is actually the Osmond family Christmas
Oh, yes.
special.
Donnie and Marie Osmond.
Yeah, do you know Donnie and Marie Osmond?
You're not that much older than me, Michelle. I think you think you are. But you're actually not that much.
I have heard of them. I just have never seen it.
We're both
Look,
a bit older than Steph.
Well, it was definitely worth a Google. I think definitely worth a Google.
Well, Donnie Osmond ended up
it was such a
playing
musical
Joseph
family.
in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I think he originated that character. But yeah, no, it was a very strange, almost very happy family, almost overly happy.
Yeah, lots of singing.
Lots of singing.
Lots of
very camp
evening dresses and suit. Like lots of talented members of the family appearing at random moments and breaking into song.
As you do.
It certainly was. It was. I can remember being in a motel room for Christmas, and I don't know why I was in a motel. I was very young, but I think we were visiting family, and I think as an adult sitting there in a motel room on Christmas Eve watching Osmond Family may have been one thing, but as a child, I actually had a very happy memory of that Christmas. So yeah, no, the Osmond Family. What is I can't think of. There are some musical extravaganzas. I think maybe that's why I hate musicals now. I don't know, because I just
too many musical episodes. You know what Christmas television show that I always seem to end up watching, which is totally random, and I don't know why I end up watching it all the time. So you remember the TV show The Nanny?
Oh yes.
It did an animated
Yes, it
Christmas
did.
special called Oi to the World.
God, that was awful.
I
hated that
know
episode.
it's so awful, but I end up watching it every year,
Oh,
or
do you?
not every year, but
I mean, I liked the show,
intimately.
but I hated that episode.
But it had Chester the dog, and he was cute.
Yes, and he talked in that.
And he did
episode.
talk in that episode, and I, for some reason, end up watching it. But I mean, Christmas specials of television shows are really mostly hokey. They're mostly really sentimental.
Well, except for the Vicar of Dibley.
Yeah, that's true.
Like all the Vicar of Dibley Christmas specials actually have quite interesting messages by the end of it. There's one that they did with about the starving kids of Africa during that particular period.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they showed a video that I found actually quite surprisingly moving. I mean, it was in a way quite a manipulative little video now that I think about it. But when I was watching, I was kind of like, oh, geez, I actually feel like I need to go and donate now too.
Yeah.
So, it dealt with some quite interesting issues. And I think one of the things I really liked about the Vicar of Dibley is that because of the British system, they don't ever feel a need to continue a show if they've got no new material to do. Mm. So whenever they do a show, it's always fairly well thought out, fairly well written shows. So, I do agree most Christmas specials are.
There's sort of very special episodes. Although the one that doesn't do that is Futurama.
Oh,
I loved Futurama. It's the Santa in Futurama is a robot, and he kills people. So in this, Futurama, for those of you who don't know the show, everyone should know the show. It's set in the year 3000. So the main character, Fry, has been cryogenically sealed and woken up in the year 3000. It's an animated show by the man who wrote Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons. And so he's in this world of robots and, sci-fi adventures, spaceships and so forth. So Santa is a robot and he kills people every Christmas Eve. And so you have to stay home because you might get killed by Santa. And he rides in and everyone's like, oh, Santa, and hides, and he's got a gun. And it's just such a deliciously irreverent take on Christmas and Santa. And I think they did a few, maybe 2 or 3 Christmas specials in which, Santa is this homicidal maniac. And it's amazingly wonderful.
Well, that actually, for some reason,
you need to cut through those.
Yeah. If you had enough of sentimentality, robot Santa who wants to kill you.
Well, that reminds me of South Park and the introduction of
Mr. Hanky,
the Christmas Pooh. Yes,
he's a poo,
which is just awful.
He's a little poo that sings.
Yes, and it's just really
awful.
Gross.
Hidey
so he attacks people, but only one character, Kyle, can see him.
Yeah.
And so they think Kyle's throwing his poo around at people.
Hidey-ho.
Yes, it was a terrible...
but you need these kind of irreverent takes on Christmas when everything's getting a bit too saccharine, a bit too, family.
Actually, you would like it because it plays off the musical as well. Because Mr. Hanky has a song.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo.
There we go. We've got Jimmy singing on the podcast. Well, you were saying that you don't...
You've got a very tuneful voice, Jimmy.
So you were saying you don't like all these sentimental things, so perhaps Robot Santa Who Wants to Kill You or Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh, they might be more up your alley.
Yeah, because he's Jewish, that's right. Kyle's Jewish, so he always bemoans the fact that he doesn't have sort of like a Santa figure.
So he has Mr. Hanky.
Yeah, something better. He has Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Pooh.
He's quite a cute little poo.
Oh, it's gross.
I don't think so.
It's amazing. You've got to say it.
I don't know.
I promise you'll enjoy it.
I don't know. I don't know.
This is a new low.
I know. Well, I was going to say, on that irreverent note, should we now move on to literature?
Books. Yes, Christmas books. Any particular favourites that come to mind?
Well, I'm going to cheat.
Yeah.
Because I love cheating, and I'm going to mention a book that doesn't really deal with Christmas, but I think is actually set during Christmas, and it's the first short story to introduce Miss Marple. It's the Tuesday Night Club.
Yeah.
And this was published in December of that year, 1927, I think it was, and all the subsequent short stories about that particular group happen during this time as well. So I think if you trace the time period, you probably end up with Christmas being right about that period. And there's something about a family, not a family, a dinner party and a group of people sitting around solving crime that to me is just what Christmas is all about, really. Because that's what it should be.
That's what the Van family does.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, we sit around and we try to figure out crimes. But this one is particularly important because it does introduce Miss Marple way before the first novel introduced her, and I think it was about 3 or 4 years before she makes a second appearance, and it's just absolutely wonderful. Have either of you read?
No, but I have read Murder for Christmas, which is a Christie, but that's got Perot.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
I think it's got Perot.
Which was
no,
the other one I'm thinking about is A Christmas Tragedy.
Right.
That's also Marple, and that's also part of the Tuesday Night Club section as well. So,
I reckon cozy crime is perfect for Christmas.
Well, this one's absolutely wonderful because it basically starts off on seemingly a very cliche premise, although back then it may not have been cliche. It's a group of people, they sit around, they just had a big dinner, and they decide, well, what should we do for entertainment? And one of them...
Sherry, yeah,
one of them says, I know, why don't we try to solve some unsolved crime? We've got a retired police officer amongst us. I'm sure you have a lot of unsolved crime that you could tell us about, and we'll try to work it out. And he said, well, funny enough, I actually do have one, and it's one that we can all work on because only recently have the police solved it, but it hasn't been reported yet, so nobody knows. So this is the setup. So nobody knows about this particular. Nobody knows who actually committed the crime for this. So I'll give you all the facts that the police have and see whether people can solve it. And so in this group, we've got Miss Marple, obviously, who's just a retired spinster aunt. Her nephew, who's a writer. There's an artist. There's a clergyman. There's a... is it a doctor? There's some other professional. I can't remember. But anyway, there's 6 of them. And so they each come with their own particular solution. And of course, they overlook Miss Marple. They're like, okay, well, tell us which one is correct. And Miss Marple's like, hang on, I haven't had my turn yet. What about me? And then, of course, she solves it. And she solves it very simply by saying, oh dear, I suppose she died, and and she made a confession before her death. That's how you knew about it, wasn't it? And he said, yeah, how did you know that? And then it starts the whole Miss Marple convention, which is she'll relate it back to some story that happened in the quiet town of Mead that somehow has some sort of significance to this story, even though you don't see that significance, but she can. And what I found interesting about that particular story is that of all those different professions, you've got a writer, you've got an artist, you've got a clergyman, I think you've got a scientist or a doctor, and you've got the police. None of them could really solve it. The one who can solve it is, in a way, an anthropologist. She's someone who studies human behaviour, or the patterns of human behaviour. And then she sits there and she's like, oh,
Miss Marple.
Yeah, this is the one. So I love that story.
That sounds like perfect Christmas reading to me. I reckon, I love reading a crime novel over, a really cozy kind of English country manner.
Well, I always imagine Christmas around a fireplace.
Yeah.
What's a better thing to do around a fireplace than read a
Then
book?
talk about horrendous, hideous crimes.
Exactly.
I've ordered up Gladys Mitchell's Murder in the Snow, which is a Christmas mystery to read over this Christmas.
Well,
so
I'd
that's my
say-
Christmas Day reading.
I'm a big fan of Gladys Mitchell after
Yeah.
Speedy Death now because
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really surprising book. And surprisingly, I've never encountered her before, so
Yeah,
it's a
so
wonderful discovery.
so Gladys Mitchell Murder in the Snow.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Yeah, I can't vouch for it, but I'm pretty sure it'll be good. Yeah.
I'm going to add Gladys Mitchell to my reading list because I do love a good detective story.
And don't you think a cozy one is really what you
That's
want
the
at
only
Christmas?
one I'm
Yeah,
interested in.
Yeah.
No hard crime for me.
yeah.
No.
Like people in a house, trapped in a house, or getting together for Christmas, solving some crimes. That's exactly what you want over like a delicious turkey dinner and some brandy in the evening.
Look, yes, definitely. That's
I have to say, we've been really warped by the Northern Hemisphere's
I know.
depiction of Christmas because last year was the first year I actually tried to do a turkey for Christmas.
Yeah,
And I don't know whether you remember what happened last year, but it's one of the hottest summer we've ever had.
yeah.
And you can imagine putting a turkey in the oven for 5 hours in the middle of a
Yeah.
40 degrees summer. I thought, went, dear God, this is why they do it in...
This is why we have seafood for Christmas. Although,
Yes.
having said that, we do have turkey quite a lot for Christmas. So.
Oh, dear. Yeah, well, we don't have air conditioning up because I live in the mountains, so there's no
Yeah.
need for it. So the house turned into a sauna.
we usually go to the beach. I mean, like
We need more
away.
Australian Christmas stories, I think.
Yeah. We
Are there any Australian Christmas stories?
Probably.
I
I can't think
There's
of
a
any.
bush Christmas.
Yeah.
Which obviously is I think it's a take on the night before Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah,
Probably.
but I
Yeah.
think we need like more full length kind of Christmassy stories. I mean,
Isn't it a possum magic one?
yeah, possibly.
Or, what's that? The gum nut characters. What
Oh
are they
yeah,
called?
they look.
Cuddlepot and Snugglepie.
Yeah.
Snugglepot and Cuddlepot.
Snugglepot and Cuddlepie, yeah, that's one.
Yeah, did they have a Christmas story? Possibly.
I don't
No,
know.
you don't think-
That
no.
doesn't ring a bell, but
Oh, no, the one I'm thinking of is
Is there Christmas
the
pudding?
muddle-headed wombat.
Oh yes,
There was
yes,
a
yes.
Christmas
There
story
was a
from the
Christmas
Muddle.
story.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
I used to love that, actually, now that I remember it. Oh, wow.
I'm reading at the moment in preparation for this podcast to get me in the mood and to get me in the mood for Christmas. I'm reading a book, collection of short stories by Connie Willis, who is a sci-fi fantasy writer, called A Lot Like Christmas. It's just been published as A Lot Like Christmas, but it used to be called, and they've added some stories, but it used to be called Miracle and Other Christmas Stories, and then it came out, 10 years ago. So they've just done an updated version and added some new stories. And she writes like really lovely. They're sci-fi stories, they're fantasy stories, but they're not kind of hard sci-fi. They're really kind of sweet, nice, interesting stories. And so these are like Christmas short stories, which sounds really sentimental and kind of lame, but they're really quite funny and lovely. And there's this one about aliens who aliens have come to Earth and they won't talk to anyone and do anything. They'll just glare at people. And then the main character discovers that when she plays Christmas carols, they start doing the things in Christmas carols. But what she also realizes, the Christmas carols are like really violent. And like if they're going to do the things that happen in Christmas carols, that means they're going to be like murdering people. So she has to only let them hear certain Christmas carols. It sounds weird, but it's really lovely. The first story, Miracle, is about the story's not about this, but it hinges on the debate between whether Miracle on 34th Street or It's a Wonderful Life is the best Christmas movie. And so the story plays out as a kind of version of both of those stories in certain ways. There's another story about there's stories involving accidental time travel. There's a story about a divorced father who's hoping to see his daughter for Christmas, that plays out amongst, like, with the background of a Christmas carol going on. So he meets the ghost of Christmas yet to come, and he meets the ghost of Christmas present, etc. And these all sound really lame when you say them out loud, but they're actually lovely and not at all silly, sentimental. They're just well done. I love Connie Willis. She wrote these wonderful, this is non-related to Christmas, but she's written this lovely time travel series, which again sounds lame, time travel, but they're really lovely.
No, time travel is
Wonderful.
perennially
Yeah.
marvellous.
Her best time travel novel is called The Doomsday Book, and it's about a it's about a world in which like people do historians time travel for research, and this historian goes back to the medieval period, but she gets the date slightly wrong, or the machine or whatever it is spits her out at the wrong time, and she wanders into a plague village, which is unfortunate for many reasons. But it's just a wonderful time travel story, and she writes wonderful Christmas stories. So read Connie Willis. Christmas is my recommendation, and we have to talk about Charles Dickens.
A Christmas Carol.
I know we're going to talk about him in a separate episode, Jimmy is reminding me, but that doesn't matter. We can still talk about how much we love A Christmas Carol. Can't we?
Yes.
Yes.
Look, that of course is I remember my mother giving me the Christmas, she must have borrowed it for me from the local library around Christmas time, and I think I would have been about, I was very young when I read it, and I haven't read it since, but I did, and I think the thing is that the message, it lives with you. The younger you read it, the stronger the moral message. And I have a living fear of being miserly, that I'm sure stems from.
I mean, it's kind of like the perennial Christmas story, isn't it? Like it's almost the archetypal Christmas story.
I was frustrated with it as a child because the main character was an elderly man, and I can remember not, because I was very specific in my reading tastes, and the main characters had to be girls.
I was girls, like that too.
Well, and so it was mostly devotion to my mother that saw me, sort of read on, once I discovered that no, this story was actually only about this elderly sort of.
Did you ever read or see The Canterbury Ghost? For some reason, I associate that with Christmas too.
What's a Canterbury Ghost?
Why is that?
I think it's. Who wrote that one? I don't think it was Oscar. It might have been Oscar Wilde. It's about a ghost that haunts this mansion, and he's trying to be scary. He's trying to scare this family out. And I think the girl's the main protagonist. Anyway, so there's this famous blood spot which is meant to be his. That's where he died. But this family weren't fazed by it, so they keep cleaning up the blood, and so every night he keeps having to put blood on until he ran out of blood. So he started putting ink and things like that. It's a really strange, funny story, but it's actually about a rather lonely ghost whose only joy is to scare other people, and he encounters a family that just doesn't get scared by him. And a girl who actually wants to befriend him, and then
it's like Casper.
Yeah, in a way. And that's all I remember from that particular story. But I remember watching this movie version of it, and thinking it was just hysterical, that blood stain that turned into like a blue ink. Because he just couldn't find any other blood-like substance.
It's Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde it is, isn't it? Yes.
I do remember reading this.
Well, actually, I was going to say with the Christmas Carol, I think that I saw the Disney film.
Yes, the Scrooge McDuck one.
Yeah, so I thought that it was literally about Mickey Mouse, like that Mickey was Cratchit.
There's been so many different incarnations.
The Muppets.
The Muppets. There was the Bill Murray one, Scrooged, I think it's called.
Yeah.
That had a scary past ghost image. And I think almost every major cartoon has done some sort of version of A Christmas Carol. So I think it's one of those stories that's been heavily embedded into each successive generation. So I think for me it was the Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, mine was the Mickey Mouse one too.
Yeah, that was probably my first thing. And it's an interesting story because I remember as a child hating the story because I was terrified of the ghosts. But as an adult, I've grown to like it more and more, and really enjoy the message that it's actually
it's lovely
conveying.
And we will revisit it in a future podcast episode, as Jimmy warned me. But actually, I was reading.
Warning,
I was actually reading in the back of the Connie Willis book that I'm reading at the moment. She points out that the Dickens didn't just write A Christmas Carol. He obviously wrote a lot of Christmas stories, and he wrote one called The Chimes, which sounds to me from her little description, and she mentions this as well, like it might have fed into It's a Wonderful Life, because it's about a man who wishes that he'd never been born. So I'm wondering if that was the kind of the source text for It's a Wonderful Life.
Even It's a Wonderful Life has very similar elements to A Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
because you have in this case an angel showing you what life would have been like without you.
Yeah.
Except in one case you're a good person, and the other case you're a bad person.
But I suppose they're both about like accepting and taking pleasure in your life and not taking your life for granted, but instead kind of enjoying what you have around you and seeing value in the people around you and the kind of almost mundane circumstances, I suppose, of life. So they have a kind of similar moral to them.
Yeah, no, I remember all the Oscar Wilde stories because I used to read all those ones. And I think they all relate to Christmas now that I come to think of it. The Canterbury Ghost was in a collection of short stories that also had The Happy Prince.
Oh, The Happy Prince, of
which
course.
is one of my favourite
Oh my goodness, that story just... I read it again recently with my youngest.
It's heartbreaking.
I can't read it without crying. I'm really just... I don't think she... And the thing that was I think that I was far more affected by it than she was for whatever reason. But that image of the flakes of gold being peeled off.
And I think it's set during Christmas because doesn't the swallow
doesn't fly away.
Yeah, the swallow dies during Christmas, I think.
Yeah, because it's winter.
During winter.
Yeah.
So I think it's a beautiful story, and I bought a beautiful edition of it. But it is a very sad story.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing I find about Christmas. There's this wonderful mixture of comedy and tragedy that often occurs in the kind of stories that we tell during this particular period. But I think ultimately the message is what you just mentioned there with A Christmas Carol, that it is about appreciating the things that we do have and our own life experiences.
Or the sadness that we can't sustain. You know, that sort of giving and, you know, sort of commitment to joy for any longer than a day.
Or you know, that kind of coming together with your family, which is lovely, but maybe you shouldn't go on for longer than a day.
Well, speaking of which, we saw a play that I think Michelle wants to talk about.
Well, I think just because at that point, which was not that long ago, I was racking my brain for
Christmassy things.
for Christmassy things, because we don't have a Christmas tradition, and so when Jimmy and I were at that play and I saw the Christmas tree and the three sisters, I did, and I may have elbowed Jimmy and said, "There's the Christmas."
So this was when you went to see Three Sisters, which is a Chekhov play. Yeah. So you were in a Chekhov play and you thought, I should talk about this on the Christmas podcast.
Well, I would.
That is a choice.
Look, the back of my mind was she's throwing tinsel around the place and is actually straddling the Christmas tree at one point.
Yes.
So this depressing play about like the erosion of all hope made you think of Christmas.
Well, no,
it was the Christmas tree, but that is true. There is a Christmas tree.
It was the set. It was the set that did it, and you could hear my silence in terms of Christmas books that I could think of.
Well, Christmas just doesn't do it for you.
Well, no. But it's just, as I say, we don't celebrate it. So
I was thinking of Christmas books, and one just came into my head, and I remember reading it, but I can't remember at all what it's about. It's actually an Australian book. It was Paul Jennings, The Santa Claus. Like claw spelt like claw, a cat's claw.
It was like a cat Santa.
Yeah, it was a cat Santa.
I just remember the cover. I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember reading that a long time ago. But I cannot remember it at all. We really should be.
That floats around our house. I do think that floats around our house because it rings a bell. And Paul Jennings.
I loved Paul Jennings. Like he was one of my favourite authors.
Great. Yeah. You know, I think that a Christmas thing that we've overlooked is the Nutcracker.
I've never seen it.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not.
I love the ballet. It's so wonderful.
Now we've got Michelle humming.
Now we've got I'm not singing. I'm not singing.
Got to take one for the team.
No, I'm not singing. But the Nutcracker is a wonderful Christmas story, and I went to see it. Yeah, and I went to see it at the Australian Ballet a few years ago, and most of the set was this amazingly huge Christmas tree. You know, the biggest Christmas tree that you've ever seen, and I love that. I love that story, and I remember I had a book version of it. And
it's once again that theme of, you know, sort of the inanimate becoming animate.
Yeah, that's true. Another doll comes to life. Wow.
Maybe in some strange way that Mannequin movie with Olivia Newton-John was actually an intertext.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something more profound going on
What
in
is
that
going
movie.
on with Christmas and all these creepy dolls coming to life?
imagine.
Well, maybe it's a time to bring life into the world or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that's the
Christmas, like
message.
this, they're animated by the spirit of Christmas. There you go.
Oh, I don't remember. Is Pinocchio?
No, I don't think Pinocchio is
No.
Christmassy.
But another film that sort of is, because Santa stars as an action hero in it, is what was it, the Guardians, not of the Galaxy. Oh God, I've completely forgotten now. It's an animated film.
With Santa as an action hero.
Yeah, and it's actually really good. It's got Santa. It's got the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, Jack Frost.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's actually
I want to
quite
see
good.
the Easter Bunny just straight up murder people.
Oh, he did.
Oh,
well,
that's
not
great.
not murder, but he's voiced by Hugh Jackman for one.
Oh,
And he's an action Easter
Awesome.
Bunny. Like, he's muscular and he uses his boomerang to.
that's amazing.
And he's got these giant eggs that are his army. It's just really, really odd but wonderful, wonderfully imaginative film. And I cannot remember the life. It's got the word Guardians in it, and I cannot remember.
I don't know. There's so much Christmas stuff out there.
There is.
Well, I thought we'd finish off today's podcast with a little reading of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," so that we are all in the mood for Christmas. There's an animated version of this from like the 30s that I used
think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's available on YouTube. We'll put the link in the show notes. I watch it every single Christmas Eve because I am,
Or maybe I saw the Warner Brothers one.
deep in my 30s, and this seems an appropriate thing to do. And it's just so delightful, and it's just what I associate with Christmas is watching this. I mean, it's like old school animation, and it's really, I don't know, delightful, and it's not Christmas for me unless I watch it.
I love
So-
The Night Before Christmas.
Yeah. So I thought I'd read Clement Clarke Moore's "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" so that we all get in a Christmassy mood. So, "'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my hand and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes how they twinkled, his dimples how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke had encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk. And laying his fingers aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, and ere he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Merry Christmas, Michelle.
Merry Christmas, Stephanie.
Merry Christmas, Jimmy.
Merry Christmas, Steph.
Merry Christmas to all our listeners. We'll see you next week. Hope you have a great one. Bye.